where does the forgiveness play a role? I have a trauma bonding story with someone in my life, and they have a really, really, really tough time getting over it. And I posted, it was something alluding to the fact of forgiveness. You do that for yourself. You're not forgiving this other person because they didn't do something wrong or they didn't hurt you or they didn't whatever. You're doing it because it's releasing your heart.
Welcome to Lead Like a Girl, where we are empowering everyday women through our stories. I'm your host, Jessica Smith, and I began this journey by sharing my life story. Now, I've joined forces with my longtime friends, Jamie and Coralyn, to keep this party going. We met many years ago as young sales girls in our 20s, driven and quickly rising to the top of our industry. As the years went on, life happened, and we all found ourselves in new companies and completely different industries, still striving for success in it all. Career, family, faith, fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but we never stopped moving. Get ready for our real conversations, inspiring stories, and our big life lessons as we share it all. The good, the bad, and the funny. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl.
Hello. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl. This is Jamie. I am with my two besties, Jessica and Coralyn, who looks frozen right now.
I feel like you're saying that with a question mark.
You were frozen while I was saying that, and I was like, is she here?
She's a statue.
She's here. Thank you so much for listening to us today. We have kind of a meaty topic. I'm really pretty excited about talking through this with you guys because, sometimes we bring up topics where it's like, this is happening to me in real time. So it's a great thing to bring up. So everyone listening, thanks so much for supporting us. Thanks for subscribing to us. Thanks for listening to us on all the different social media or podcast avenues.
We got to do a giveaway or something. Lead Like a Girl Lab on YouTube. Subscribe. We need to do a giveaway.
Good idea. We have so much good merch. In fact, I just started unpacking and I found I had two more trucker hats, Lead Like a Girl trucker hats. So I actually have two things I could give away to anyone who wants to like us and subscribe and share. And I'm loving how many comments and things that we're getting, like just action that we're getting on some of those short clips too, where you just get a little tidbit of what's happening. So our podcast is all about empowering everyday women with our stories. And today I have a fun topic. It's a little meaty, like I said, but it's something that happened to me recently where I had a person who was very close to me basically bring up a bunch of, I'll say trauma or like kind of negative things that happened to them in the past. Yeah. And the impression I had was they were kind of like just reliving it, like just kept reliving those things. And it got me thinking, and I don't know if I'm sure this has happened to you guys where something happens in your life and then all of a sudden that day or the next day, there's like a quote that posts on Facebook, or there's like, you see someone who's like, oh yeah, I was just talking about you, or I was just thinking about you, where it's like, oh, this is a sign that this is something to talk about or think about. But in any case, they just kept kind of reliving past trauma. Mm-hmm. The first thing in my head, and please guys comment on this, but the first thing in my head was well, first of all, you can't change the past. You can only learn from it. Correct.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so reliving these past traumatic experiences or maybe mistakes is just, it doesn't help you. It doesn't help to sit in that. Have you guys experienced that at all? Or has that ever happened to you where maybe you've come across someone or that's happened to you in your life where you just can't let it go, or you just keep reliving that?
I think of when we started reading about this, I still went back to the trauma of I had a horrendous manager for a real short stint in a career. And I thought I was just because we had come off from the company and I had gotten this new role, and my manager was just a piece of work. And I literally thought that there was something wrong with me until after the fact. And I went on and I in a different company, different role, and realized it was not me. It was her. But I remember thinking,
I was going to ask if it was a her or him. Damn it.
Yeah.
I hate to hear that because the only worst manager I've had was a female too. So it's like,
and it was. And I think that it's been many times that every now and then something will trigger me, and I'll think back and like, oh, I should have said this, or if I saw her I would say this, and I never do, I never will.
Yeah.
It just, you
Yeah.
play it, but the replay of the conversation and replay of the events, they don't serve anybody, but it makes me get anxious and it makes me feel mad, just like I was in the moment. And so talking through this is probably a pretty good thing for me. And it's not the only time, but that's the thing that I come back to, because I've definitely had an imaginary one-sided conversation with this person.
I love that you said that, because isn't that true? It's that imaginary one-sided conversation, or it's that after it's happened, you think of all the things that you should say or should have said.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or
It's
could have
always
said.
later, or could have
Well,
said.
and in that spirit, it's always a good thing that I didn't say what I coulda or should have said. So that's
Sure.
always a good thing for me. But I had a pastor years and years ago, and every time he preached a sermon on forgiveness, he always used to say that sometimes we think that we've forgiven someone for whatever they did or offended us. But if you keep replaying the offense
Mhm.
in your head, you haven't forgiven. Now, that
Right.
doesn't mean that you have to forget about it. But if you keep playing and going through that, those emotions of that offense, then you really haven't forgiven. And so I always revert back to that. However, I'm the person, I can't tell you how many times I can have some sort of argument, whatever it is, whether it's with one of my sisters or my husband. And I'm that person that's like 10 minutes later, I forgot about that shit. Like, I'm not even thinking about it. I'll wake up the next day and he's like, I'm still mad. I'm like, about what? And I'm genuinely like, I can't remember about what. So for me, I tend to, and I don't know, I feel like I've not done anything to practice that. That's kind of just how I'm wired,
Yeah.
where I just let stuff go and it's like I move on. I'm not someone that holds grudges. Now, once you show me who you are, then I'm going to move a little differently, but not so much where I'm going to keep playing that back. But I know what you're talking about, Jamie. And I feel like kids do it a lot when they get adults. They just start talking about all the trauma and blaming and listen, I didn't have the best life, but my mom did the best that she could with what she knew. And that's it. And I don't to go back and just continue to replay all the messed up shit from my childhood, like you said, doesn't do
Yeah.
me any good. It's doing myself a disservice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think some of that came, and one of the reasons why I wanted to explore this topic was this person who's really close to me had brought up some things that I did, like people who I
Yeah.
had in
See?
my life that quote unquote hurt them.
Yeah.
And so it's like I felt like my answer was like, I can't, it's in the, what am I going to do about it now?
Yeah.
I learned my lesson, but yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't really, you don't heal from that. I don't think. Again, I'm not, none of us are counselors or
Well, but
therapists,
that's
and
a
this is
good
like us living our real life.
but that's a good question, Jamie. That I always say, and I tell my kids this all the time, like when you're having these type of conversations or just conversations in general, what are you trying to accomplish? That's what I ask myself. Like, what do I want to accomplish in this conversation? And so when I think about that, what do you think someone that comes to you with that? What are they I haven't been the person that and maybe I have, not that I recall, but what do you think someone is trying to gain or get out of that conversation?
I can honestly say I really don't know, because
Mm.
I've
They
never done
probably
that.
want
Like,
some
is it,
validation. They want
or
a
maybe
little
just,
vindication.
sure. Like, just, I'm sorry, I hear you. I'm here, I'm listening to you. Are you thinking that? Is that what you're
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
reason I ask that too, because I've had some family members be in that same situation. And I feel like Coralyn, what she just said, I think that some people, and maybe they find it helpful. I'm like you, I don't see the point in it, but maybe they're looking for some sort of just acknowledgement of hear you, I see you, and
Mhm.
I didn't know that you felt that way, and I'm really sorry, but it has to be period. Because I think what happens sometimes is that we go on and then we talk ourselves or we talk ourselves out of the whatever it is, apology or the whatever they're looking for. So
Yeah.
I would say that that's where, and that's what I've kind of told the family members. I'm like, just stop there, because the moment you say, but I was young and I didn't know, and I didn't, now it kind of takes away from it, and they feel like
It's
you're
like,
making excuses.
yes, excuses. And I think too, like, if you get to the point where, let's say you're reliving that and the person says, hey, I see you, I hear you, I'm sorry, I wish I could have made it better, but I didn't.
Yep.
Unfortunately, let's move on. And then the person, like yourself or whomever, doesn't move on, like just
Right.
keeps, it's like, okay,
I'm
we got to
out.
figure this out. Like we
Yeah.
have to, this is not going to get fixed. So I want to tell you a quick quote. This is what I saw that really triggered me wanting to do this, because like I said, this has happened in my real life. And then I saw this quote, and it's not an exact quote, but it was from Charlie Chaplin. I don't know if you've seen that on social media about the joke.
Was it a mime?
No. So it was when he he said something.
He said something.
Silent pictures. So they said he was in front of an audience, and he told a joke. And the first time he told the joke, everybody in the audience laughed. And then he paused and he said the same joke again, a second time. He said the same exact joke. And so some people kind of laughed again. Well, then he paused and then he said the same exact joke a third time, and just nobody laughed. And what he said was, if you can't laugh at the same joke repeatedly, why do you cry over the same pain and sorrow time and time again? And I just, like I said, the thing showed up and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, why are you continuing to like cry over this? So there were a few points, and I have a couple questions for you guys. One, and these are some things that I just researched getting ready for this. So one was, repeating pain doesn't heal it, but your perspective does. So we often revisit our past wounds, hoping that reliving them will somehow bring relief, but telling the same story over and over doesn't really ease the hurt. It like reinforces it. So healing comes when we step back, shift our perspective, and just stop letting the pain define the narrative. So my question to you guys is, like, why do you think people stay attached to the painful stories from their past? Whether it be, something that happened in your childhood, maybe it's something that happened in your, marriage or your adulthood or your past generations, whatever it is. Like, why do you think people just stay attached to those stories?
I would say to some degree, it's for some people that pain has defined them for so long. Like, you were the girl that always did the thing, or you were that victim. And so you not owning that title anymore forces you to move on and not carry that. And I don't want to say it's a crutch, but say as a well, I can't do this because I had this thing happen, or I can't move forward in the space. But if that doesn't have a hold on you anymore, well, then we don't have an excuse. We don't have.
I was just about to say chapter two.
And I think, I have a friend of mine who, man, we relive the same conversation almost every time we talk. And
really?
It's crazy. They had something happen to them at their work. Horrible manager, just very verbally abusive, really bad. And she had to leave. Just like very, very horrible. But every time we talk, because she's had a hard time finding a new job. And so every time that we have a conversation about like, what are your next steps or what are you going to be doing? And she's like, man, if that old boss of mine didn't do X, Y, Z, and this is like, guys, this is like years.
This is
like,
not me, right?
No, no, not at all.
I'm not going to name names, but
not going to name names, but it's just right. No, it's not. No.
I'm like, this is starting to sound familiar. No, go ahead.
No, honestly though, it's if they can't let it go, like the pain and the trauma from this past manager, they won't let it go. And so it's just always like, well, I can't go out and do this because I had this like painful thing happen. And so I think that's a little reason, not the only reason, but it's
I think
a part of it.
I agree. And I think that relates a little bit to what Jessica has brought up in the past, where she's talking about, I suffer from, where you're like, I suffer from anxiety, or I suffer from depression, or I suffer, like how, like if you continually think of yourself as suffering from this thing, then you're not ever like focused on getting over that thing or moving on.
Yeah. Well, and some people want to sit, I know this sounds crazy, but or maybe I don't say want to. Some people are so comfortable in misery that if they don't remind themselves of all the miserable things, they don't have a reason to sit there in misery. So it's that's why they're so miserable. And I know exactly, like, those people, you start talking to them and they're like, "You have no idea what I've been through. I've been through some shit," and and blah blah blah. And I've been in those conversations before, and I don't always share, believe it or not, but I'm thinking to myself, like, you have no idea what I've been through, and I'm
Yes.
not going to sit here and tell you, but this sounds like an excuse. Everybody's been through shit. You're not the only one. And most of the time that you look at people and think that they haven't been through anything, those are the ones that have been through the worst. They just don't walk around with a freaking poster of what they've been through.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's annoying, but the question is, like, how do you help them? Like, when you're in that conversation, how did you get from one side of that conversation to the other, Jamie?
To be honest, that conversation's not over.
Yeah. You're like, "I didn't.
Yeah,
I'm still
thanks.
in
I
it."
didn't.
Yeah.
No, I'm literally still in it, and it's something I'm just thinking about because I'm like, how do I get out of it, and how do I not hurt this person's feelings and not and make them feel heard and validated, like,
Right.
because it's like this thing that keeps coming up over and over, and I'm like, I don't know how to fix this, and you know how terrible that feels, right? When you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to fix this.
Right. And you're such a fixer. And not to start a sermon, but you can't fix it. It's not yours to fix. Give it to God and talk to him about it. That's it. That's my
It's done.
recipe
All
for
right,
everything.
it's done.
Yeah.
It's funny that it's great that you brought up people kind of sharing their own stories with you, because one of the questions that came up as I was researching this, well, I'll say the statement first. They said, be where you are, not where you were. So the present is the only place real change and peace can begin. So let yourself feel what you need to feel, but just don't get stuck there. Like an old
Yes.
story told too many times, pain loses meaning when it's all that we focus on. So, like, give
Yep.
yourself a break. A question I had here for you guys is, and I want to tell you a little story first, but it's, why is it so easy to bond over trauma, but harder to celebrate growth? So what you just brought up,
Mm.
Jessica, reminded me of a situation I was in. It's probably been 15 years ago, but there was a woman that I met, and we'll say she was maybe a bit rough around the edges. Like, I think she probably made some unfortunate choices in her life, but in any case, I met her, and we were kind of working on side by side on something together. And we, as one does, we just started to, like, chat a little bit about our lives. And she said we found out we had a lot of things in common. We had a lot of stuff in our past that we did the same things, or the same kind of negative, unfortunate things happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had brought up, she's just looked at me and she was like, I can't believe how much we have in common. And she's like, I would never, ever have guessed that. I would never have guessed that you these, things also happened to you. It's just so much. I mean, at that moment, I took it as really as a compliment, because I don't want to put that image of myself out into the world. I don't want the world to be like, oh, Jamie looks like she's rough around the edges. I mean, right. I want people to look at me and think she's a success. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I never want someone to be like, Jamie looks like she's been through some shit. You're gonna say that, but
sounds so much better when you say it, Jamie.
Oh my gosh. But I do think that there's some validity in that, because it's like, you do, like, when you meet somebody else and you're like, oh my gosh, we were both, children of divorce, or we were both abused, or we were both this or that. You do kind of have that bond, right? I mean,
yes.
And I feel like we kind of bring that up. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was like, I feel like that's brought up a lot more than, like, the successes or the growth, where you're like, you know what, this happened, but now, it's kind of championing.
Well, you think about it like this. I just thought of this while you're saying this, but I think, like, when you're in misery, you're like commiserating with you, like, oh, I had that happen too, or I had an abusive relationship, and you kind of can talk about that. But you think of the opposite, and Jamie, you come and tell me, like, oh, hey, I'm gonna run a half marathon. Hey, I'm gonna run too, and now I'm a one-upper. There's a different connotation,
and
there is. And it's not to anybody to define that, but that's just the way that it comes off, right? Like, I think that we're a little bit programmed to not want to celebrate too much, or take some, it's just, there's always this, like, overthinking of
is that a girl thing?
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah,
it is.
I
And
didn't want to
think
say
it's
it, but
it's like we just talked about in the last one. It's like, or a couple episodes ago, where it's like you're advocating for yourself. It's not bragging. It's like, it's
yeah.
kind of, but it's hard to do. It doesn't. It feels it feels weird,
Well,
and it shouldn't feel weird.
you named it, and it's like a thing, right? So you called it trauma bonding. I asked if it was a girl thing because recently I had someone bring to my attention that they were in this relationship. And I feel like we do this a lot. And I never put it together and named it. But she said, I just realized that this whole time I've been in this relationship wasn't anything more than trauma bonding. And I was like, whoa. And
Yeah.
it was like a light bulb moment for her. And I'm like, you are exactly right. And that's when she realized, like, what she thought was love or whatever. She's like, and I forget how she said that it kind of came to her. But so, with that being said, I think even in our relationships, you got to be really careful with that. Not just a friend relationship, but, relationship with someone, and you realize 2 years later, that's what you're doing. And
Yeah.
Coralyn said it, and that's exactly why naturally we gravitate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other quote or tidbit of information that I came across was joy lives in the small, ordinary moments. So it's not always about the big events. Sometimes a smile, a shared laugh, or a moment of stillness is enough. Laughter isn't just about humor, it's a crack where the light gets in. But we
Yeah.
miss the small gifts when we're too busy dwelling on what's gone or what's wrong. And a question, and you've talked about this a lot, Jessica, with journaling and meditating. I know I've talked about going to counseling and therapy, and I'm a big advocate of like, do whatever you need to do to try to get over whatever this is. But how do you guys think journaling, like, what do you think about how like journaling or therapy or what we're doing right now, we're telling stories, how can that be used to kind of rewrite the narrative or like rewrite how we are dealing with some things in the past and moving on from things in the past?
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to something you said because I just remembered something. When you said the last thing about sitting in it
Mm-hmm.
instead of moving on, I had a mentor that
Like, don't get stuck
used to
there.
say, yeah, don't get stuck there. I had a mentor that used to say, you can be pissed, angry, cry, scream, all of that. He's like, that's fine. That's good. He's like, but my rule is you got 24 hours. And he's like, and maybe it's not literally 24 hours, but I want you to put the time in perspective. Do whatever you need to do. And you have to move on because the danger is not the anger. It's where you actually post up and
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
pitch your tent. That's where it becomes dangerous. And that stuck with me. And I always remembered that to 24 hours and dust yourself off and move on. Because if you don't, you are in a danger zone. And that's kind of how I think of it. I am, as you said, big on journaling. And listen, even doing the first season of this podcast and sharing my life
Mm-hmm.
story. Some of those stories were the first time I was actually even saying it out of my mouth. And I am a storyteller and I share a lot. But for me, there was a lot of therapy in that, being able to not just tell these stupid decisions that I made, and some of cases, not decisions I made, but this is just where I was. A lot of telling that was it wasn't just telling it, it was also telling what I learned from it and how I grew from it and the
Mm-hmm. Yep.
resiliency that came from it. And I think that's a big part of it too, is it's just like they say about mistakes. It's not about the mistakes or the failure, it's about the lesson. And I think that's a big part of it. Tell your story, but understand what you gained from it because we always gain something from it. And I think sometimes people either can't identify that soon enough or
Mm-hmm.
when they revert back to the trauma, they forget to say that part. And I think that's really important to do because that shapes us to who we are. And I look back and say, yeah, there was some messed up things that happened, but if it wasn't for that, I would not be who I am today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me of what the two of you had talked about, saving, kind of like saving a folder of your wins,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
where, where it's like, by telling your story and telling about, maybe some mistakes you made and like what you learned from it, it's probably like your own version of that folder of wins where you're like, I went through these things, this happened, but guess what? Look at me now, or look at what I did to, to change that.
Yeah. And that's why I believe everybody should write a book, by the way. Everybody should write a book.
Well,
Seriously.
Except those of us who hate writing.
Your point, Jessica, that you made, that what your mentor said about giving yourself a finite amount of time to deal with it. That is something that I do frequently, even if it's just something small that is just, I gotta let this out. And there's been a couple of times where I've just been extremely frustrated to the point of tears. And I looked at myself in the mirror, like legit, and just said, okay, you have 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
And we're moving on, literally giving myself a pep talk. So it's effective because you've acknowledged there's a pain here. You're frustrated, but we're done with it. We're moving on. But I also was given a piece of advice. I think my mom actually told me this. Like, this is like way back in the day. I was going through a breakup or something. And she had said, I know that you're having a problem right now and this is really hard for you. Do me a favor, go to your calendar. 1 month from today, do a circle around it. And I guarantee when you hit that date, you're going to feel so much better than you do now.
That's great.
And I did that and it totally worked. And I've done it a couple of times with just different milestones that I've been trying to work through, but it's just giving yourself a period of time of grief, giving yourself some margin. But then at that day on the 16th of August, we're moving on.
Yeah.
And, I think in that piece, it gives you power.
Yeah.
To be able to control whatever it is. There's obviously something probably in there that you can't control, but it gives you a piece of ownership and control where you can actually move forward. And that I think it's retrains your brain too, that there is power and there's possibility and it's not just pain.
Yeah. I like that, putting something, because I think something else that happens in that, it's almost like the interview question that I love asking people, like, what is something I can do in the first 90 days that would make you feel really glad you chose me? Automatically, their brain in that moment has to go to seeing me in that job. And what you just said, if I went to a calendar and 1 month from now, automatically my brain is going to put myself in that space of a month from now. Just that alone, you instantly are going to release some of that pressure, because we know in the future you're not going to feel like you feel right here in this moment. So I see the psychology in that. Okay.
Yeah. That's great. Kudos to mom.
Yeah.
For that especially.
Good
Tell
job,
her
Laura.
Good job,
right.
Mom.
Tell her we love that. Hopefully she's listening to this episode. Good job.
She
exactly.
does. I get many. Shout out to my mom who listens to the episode first thing Wednesday.
Love it.
Sends me, hey, did you guys ever think about this?
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Love it.
We gotta have her as a
Sometimes it's spot on. Sometimes I'm like, slow your roll, Mom.
Right. Okay. You got to let her know. We want to know who's her favorite. Okay. Tell her.
Yeah, it's me. We all know. I'm just kidding. It's me.
Obviously, it's Jamie.
Right. Well, she can't tell you guys apart unless she's watching you on YouTube.
I know. I can't believe how many times that's been mentioned. But so, yeah, I guess as far as even a takeaway from this, you kind of alluded to this before, Jessica, where it's like, where does the forgiveness play a role? I had posted something, I think, about forgiveness one time, just as like shared a meme on Facebook or something. And I have a trauma bonding story with someone in my life. And they have a really, really, really tough time, like, getting over it. And I posted that, and I think it was something alluding to the fact of like forgiveness. You do that for yourself. You're not saying this other person, I'm forgiving this other person because they didn't do something wrong or they didn't hurt you or they didn't whatever. You're doing it because it's releasing your heart. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's for yourself. And I think that just along with this whole topic, I mean, you guys know I'm very thankful to go to counseling and work through a lot of my grief and things like that. But like, just forgiving someone for doing you wrong it's so powerful for your own heart. So, I mean, as we've just been talking through this, that's really like one of the takeaways that I have from this topic is just, that's something that can, maybe that's the step, Jessica. You would ask like, well, how did that conversation go? Maybe it's just going to have to go down the route of forgiveness,
Well, and here's another thing, and nobody wants to hear this when you're on that side of the conversation. But sometimes what I have found with speaking and mentoring others is that sometimes people are good about forgiving other people, but what they don't realize is the next step to that is forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
That is like that's the next level. And so you can forgive someone, but there's somewhere along the line that I have to look at myself and forgive myself, because sometimes we feel like we allowed it, right? And in many cases we did. So now I have to forgive myself. So I think it's a two-part. You got to forgive people, and then you got to forgive yourself. And I think that's where forgiveness is really complete.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
Definitely.
yep, that's my takeaway.
I love it. Cor, you got anything?
So many things.
So many
I
things.
would just say, yeah, I think at the end of the day, we are wired. We're wired to be connected to other people, and sometimes we let the trauma, past circumstances get in the way of having a relationship with people. And so that whole conversation of if we can move past our pain and just live in the moment temporarily, but move past it so we can see the possibility, we're all going to be better for that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. Thank you guys so much for talking through all this. Like I said, this was like a real time thing in my life. Like this just happened, and I started to research it a bit and look into it. And I was like, man, I can't be the only one that this is, there's 1,000 of us, right? There's a bunch of us that probably have these same types of situations where we have to figure out, like, how do we get past it? How do we stop reliving it? But also, how do we react to the folks that, are in our lives and keep doing that? So thanks guys for this. I feel like there's been a handful of episodes where it's like this is therapy for me.
I told you that's what we're doing here. And hopefully this is therapy for our audience as well. And they'll continue to tune in and give us feedback on what do they have going on in their lives that they want to talk to us about, or see what our experience has been in that area. So we welcome those messages and always wanting to, hear feedback.
Yeah, great. So anyway, you guys know, follow us, subscribe, share our stuff, please. We love the comments, and we would love for some more, topic ideas. If you've got something that would be great to talk about, or we've got some good interviews coming up too with some guests, which will be really fun. So again, Lead Like a Girl Lab is our YouTube channel. It's our Facebook, or it's our website. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, TikTok. We appreciate it all. So thanks a lot.
Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.